It's 2018 and that means it's time to catch up with the gang from the Canny Group, and Richard Pinkstone has joined us in the studio. Richard, you're a lawyer.
I am, Roxy. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you too. It's good to have you guys back on board. And I'm not sort of trying to scare anyone when I say we've got a lawyer in the studio and I'm lawyered up, but we are talking about something that's very, very important, and it's almost should be a New Year's resolution to anyone who hasn't done it.
That's right, Roxy. We're talking about wills.
Yes.
Why should we have them? Well, once you turn 18, you should start considering a will. From the age of 18, you're entitled to own property. You may have some expectation in someone else's estate, be starting a relationship, contemplating marriages, businesses, jobs, money in the bank. All these things are things that could be constitute your estate, and upon any unexpected death, without a will, you won't be able to deal with them.
Yeah, look, it's interesting you said from the age of 18. I'm just thinking about my kids, and of course, like they're both over 18, over 21 in fact, that really they've got bits and pieces here and there. They really should write a will.
A lot of people aren't aware
or
of
have
what,
a will written.
Well, a lot of people aren't aware of what they own or may be entitled to.
Well, they don't think about it. But it of course, there's superannuation. Now everyone has super if you're working. So there's lots of different things.
Well, there's also death benefits tied to superannuation.
Oh, of course, yes.
So, yeah, a lot of people simply aren't aware of the magnitude of their own estates. So we would encourage everybody to think about making a will, which involves appointing someone you trust, and then setting out the steps to create certainty about the succession of what happens to those assets once you pass on.
Yeah, sure. So what are some of the things we should be considering? So we've mentioned superannuation in there, but it's even simple things like most 18-year-olds own a car.
That's right, any personal property. So when we take instructions, we ask what constitutes the estate. We then ask what are who do you trust in order to administer the estate?
So that's somebody like an executor is that what you mean?
The executor trustee,
yep.
that's
Yep.
right. So that's typically somebody close, a spouse, or it could be a brother or a family member, even a friend. It could be a lawyer if you haven't got anyone else. So, yes, we have seen what happens if people don't make good and valid wills, where there may be disputes and all sorts of infighting amongst family members. So it helps to eliminate confusion, create certainty, and hopefully for the person making the will, give them a peace of mind about...
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the other thing that we should always consider as well, and it just reminded me because I've got to get mine redone, you're making me feel guilty, is that our circumstances change.
Oh, they do.
So,
we should look at our wills every time something... every 5 years, or if you buy a house, if you sell a business, any of those sort of events are times to start thinking about updating your will.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's interesting, some people may not even be aware of this, but say, for example, with your super, you might just assume that, say, it'd go to your spouse or it'd go to your kids, but it may not necessarily.
Look, super's a bit complicated. That's usually outside the will unless there's a binding death benefit nomination to bring it in. We can deal with those sort of succession planning arrangements. But the very first question is what constitutes your estate.
So what do you
strictly
have?
speaking, superannuation may not be
sort of, gotcha.
outside of the estate. That's
So
right.
there's a lot to consider. That's the bottom line.
Absolutely.
And really, let's face it, I ain't going to be sitting here tomorrow afternoon writing my will. I'm best to go and see somebody professional and make sure that I get everything covered.
That's right, Roxy. It's all about peace of mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Great advice, Richard. Thank you so much for joining us. Our first session with Canny Group this year for 2018. Good idea. Write or get a will written. Make sure you do. And drop in and get the guys at Canny Group to do it for you. You're an honest-looking bloke, Richard, for a lawyer.
And our rates are very reasonable.
Oh, good. I'm so pleased to hear it. I would think nothing less. Thanks again, Richard, and we'll catch up with the Canny Group again in a couple of weeks.